Did you know Elvis Presley had a twin brother? His name was Jesse Garon. He was born 35 minutes before Elvis, stillborn. This one fact changes everything. It hangs over the story of Elvis like a shadow. It starts in a tiny two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi, a house his father, Vernon, built for $180. A house that is now a museum, a place where millions of people come to feel a connection to a legend. But what if they feel something else? What if the veil between worlds is thin there? People talk, staff members whisper. Visitors leave with stories they can't quite explain. They talk about sounds that shouldn't be there. They see things in the corner of their eye. They feel emotions that are not their own. Is it just nostalgia? Or is it something more? Is the immense energy of a global icon's birth, mixed with the tragedy of a lost brother, enough to leave a permanent mark on a place? These are not just ghost stories. They are persistent, recurring accounts from different people over many years. They point to something strange happening in that humble little house on a hill in Tupelo. Number 17, why does gospel music play when no radio is on? It often starts late in the afternoon. The crowds have thinned out. The Mississippi sun starts to dip low, casting long shadows across the lawn. A tour guide is locking up the small Assembly of God church that was moved to the site. It's the very church where a young Elvis first fell in love with music. And that's when they hear it. A low, faint humming. Sometimes it's a single voice, a pure tenor, singing a line from Peace in the Valley. Other times it's a full-throated chorus, the sound of a Sunday morning service in full swing. But the church is empty, the doors are locked, there are no speakers, no sound system left on. It's just phantom music echoing in a place where music was born. The first documented reports of this phenomenon date back to the early 1980s, not long after the site became a major tourist destination. A groundskeeper, a man named Earl Johnson, reported it to his supervisor. He thought kids were playing a prank with a hidden boombox. They swept the entire area. They found nothing. The reports continued. Visitors would ask, "What time does the choir practice?" The staff would have to explain there was no choir. In 1994, a team of amateur paranormal investigators from Jackson, Mississippi, calling themselves the Delta Paranormal Society, received permission to stay on the grounds after dark. Their audio recordings picked up what they called Class C EVPs, or electronic voice phenomena. Faint, distant singing, barely audible above the static. The melodies were identifiable as old gospel hymns, the kind Gladys Presley would have sung. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a folklorist and author of the book Southern Spectres, Ghosts of the Bible Belt, dedicated a chapter to the Tupelo birthplace. She interviewed over a dozen former and current employees. A recurring theme was the musical phenomena. Of one guide, Marianne Carter, who worked there for 15 years, described the sound as part of the property. She said it was comforting. She believed it was a residual haunting and emotional memory replaying itself. The intense spiritual and emotional energy of those early church services, where a young boy was discovering his destiny, was simply stamped onto the environment. The wood, the glass, the very air itself remembered the music and played it back. Others have a different theory. They connect it directly to Elvis. The music isn't a random memory. It's his memory. It's the sound of his first inspiration, the foundation of everything he would become. Some psychics who have visited the site claim it is the spirit of a young Elvis, forever drawn back to the place where his soul first ignited with passion. They say the music is stronger on his birthday, January 8th, and on the anniversary of his death, August 16th. A 2005 report by a local news station, WTVA Tupelo, covered the phenomenon. They brought in a sound engineer who set up sensitive microphones inside the church overnight. The recordings were inconclusive. They captured faint, unidentifiable sounds, but nothing that could be definitively called singing. The engineer, however, admitted to feeling an unmistakable sense of presence, and hearing what he thought was a hymn with his own ears, though the microphones didn't pick it up clearly. The music is almost always gospel. It's never Hound Dog or Jailhouse Rock. It's Amazing Grace. It's How Great Thou Art. It's the music of his mother, his church, his roots. It's the sound of a boy before he became a king. So what are we left with? If it's a memory, how can an inanimate building store and replay sounds? If it's a spirit, why does it only manifest as music from his childhood? And if it's all just imagination, why do so many different people, separated by years, report hearing the very same old-time gospel hymns? Number 16 does a second heartbeat echo in the birth room. Enter the tiny bedroom of the two-room shotgun shack. This is the heart of the site. This is where it happened. On January 8th, 1935, in this small wood-planked room, Gladys Presley gave birth to twin boys. The first, Jesse Garon, was stillborn. The second, Elvis Aaron, was alive and screaming. The joy and the grief of that moment must have been immense, an emotional explosion in a tiny space. And some say the echo of that moment never left. It's not a loud sound, it's a feeling as much as a noise. Visitors standing in the room sometimes report a faint, rhythmic thumping. It's not the sound of the house settling. It's not the bass from a car stereo down the road. It's a soft, muffled pulse. Thump, 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 like a heartbeat heard through a wall or through water. Most people don't notice it. They're too busy looking at the period furniture, imagining the scene. But for those who stand still and just listen, for those who are sensitive to the atmosphere of a place, it is sometimes there. The story of the twin heartbeat gained traction in the late 1990s. A tour guide named Brenda May supposedly was the first staff member to talk about it openly. She said she first heard it while cleaning the room one evening after closing. She thought it was a problem with the plumbing or heating, but maintenance found nothing. Then a visitor, a cardiologist from Germany, mentioned it to her. He described it perfectly. A faint, rapid pulse, somewhere between 120 and 140 beats per minute, the average fetal heartbeat. Parapsychologists have a name for this kind of thing, stone tape theory. The idea is that powerful emotional events can be recorded onto the physical environment, like sound onto a magnetic tape. The walls, the floor, the very objects in the room can store this energy. Then, under certain conditions, the recording plays back. The birth of Elvis, a global icon, coupled with the profound tragedy of losing his twin, would certainly qualify as a powerful emotional event. Dr. Alistair Finch, a controversial figure in paranormal research and author of Echoes of Life, proposed that the wood of the house itself acts as the tape. He argued in a 1998 essay that the raw, untreated pine boards Vernon Presley used to build the house were particularly porous to psychic energy. A more poignant theory connects the sound directly to Jesse Garon. In this view, the heartbeat is not a memory. It is a presence. It's the spirit of the lost twin, forever tied to the room where his life both began and ended. Those who subscribe to this idea say the heartbeat is Jesse's, a spectral echo of a life that never was, eternally waiting for his brother. They point to Elvis's lifelong fascination with the number two and his well-documented feeling of loneliness, of always missing a part of himself. Perhaps that feeling was a two-way street. Perhaps Jesse missed him too. Skeptics, of course, have other explanations. They point to infrasound, low-frequency sounds below the range of human hearing that can cause feelings of unease, vibrations, and even auditory hallucinations. They suggest nearby machinery or even wind patterns could create such an effect. Others suggest it's purely psychological. Visitors know the story of the twins. They enter the room with a sense of sadness and expectation. The human brain is excellent at finding patterns, and it might interpret random ambient noise as the heartbeat it's subconsciously expecting to hear. But the stories persist. A sound engineer visiting in 2011 supposedly recorded the ambient noise of the room and later claimed to have isolated a low-frequency, rhythmic pulse that had no discernible source. The recording has never been made public, becoming the stuff of local legend itself. If the sound is real, what is it? Is it a psychic recording of Gladys's anxiety, her own heart pounding as she went through a difficult labor? Could it be the echo of the two tiny hearts, one that would stop and one that would go on to change the world? And the most chilling question, if it is Jesse's heartbeat, still beating in that room, does it mean he's still waiting? Number 15, why does the smell of fried chicken linger in an empty kitchen? The Presley house has no working kitchen. The small area where Gladys would have cooked is part of the museum display. There is a wood-burning stove, a simple table, and some period-appropriate utensils. Nothing is cooked there. Nothing has been cooked there for decades. And yet, sometimes, the air fills with the rich, unmistakable smell of southern fried chicken. It's one of the most commonly reported phenomena at the site. It's also one of the most comforting. Unlike a ghostly wail or a cold spot, the smell is warm and familiar. It happens without warning. A group of tourists will be walking through the house, listening to the guide, and suddenly someone will sniff the air. Is someone cooking? They'll ask. The smell is described as incredibly specific. It's not the generic smell of a fast food restaurant. It's the scent of chicken frying in a cast iron skillet with a hint of bacon grease, the way many Southern families, including the Presleys, would have seasoned their pans. Gladys Presley was, by all accounts, a devoted and loving mother. Elvis was the center of her universe. In the poverty of the Depression-era South, a good meal was a profound act of love. Fried chicken was a favorite. The connection between Gladys, her love for Elvis, and this specific meal is a powerful one. Many believe this phantom scent is the spiritual residue of that love. Paranormal investigators call this a sensory haunting. It's not a visual or auditory phenomenon, but an olfactory one. Dr. Judith Farlow, a sociologist who studied the cultural impact of Elvis in her book The King's Shadow, touched on these stories. She didn't endorse a supernatural explanation, but she found the consistency of the reports fascinating. She noted that the smell was most often reported by people who had a strong emotional connection to their own mothers or grandmothers, suggesting a psychological trigger. The humble, domestic setting of the house might evoke memories of their own childhood kitchens, and the brain fills in the sensory details. But that doesn't explain why multiple people, strangers to each other, smell it at the exact same time. In 2008, a school group was touring the house. According to their teacher, David Chen, about half the class of 30 students suddenly started talking about being hungry and wanting fried chicken. Chen and the other adults smelled it too. A strong, delicious aroma that seemed to emanate from the cold, empty stove. It lasted for about 2 minutes and then vanished completely. One popular theory is that it's the spirit of Gladys herself forever tending to her home and her boy. In this view, she is a benevolent, protective presence. The smell of her cooking is a sign of her continued presence, a ghostly act of hospitality to the millions who come to visit her son's first home. Psychics have claimed to communicate with a female spirit on the property who identifies herself as a mother and who is always making sure her boy has enough to eat. Of course, there are more mundane explanations. The human sense of smell is powerfully linked to memory. The mere suggestion of Southern cooking in a Southern home might be enough to create the perception of a smell that isn't there. The site is also surrounded by residential areas and restaurants. A breeze from the right direction could carry a scent from miles away. Yet, staff maintain that the smell is distinctly localized inside the house. It appears even when all the doors and windows are closed. It's strong in the kitchen area and non-existent on the front porch just a few feet away. The scent is not the only one reported. Less frequently, people have smelled the sweet, earthy scent of chewing tobacco, which Vernon Presley often used. And on a few rare occasions, the clean, soapy smell of lye, which would have been used for washing clothes. These are the smells of a life lived, of a family trying to make a home in difficult times. So what is it? Is it a trick of the mind? A powerful suggestion planted in a historical setting? Or is it a ghostly echo, a memory of love and care so strong that it has seeped into the very walls, occasionally releasing the comforting aroma of a mother's cooking? And if it is Gladys, is she still there forever frying chicken for the little boy who never really left? Number 14, who is the little boy seen darting behind the church? He is always seen from a distance. A flash of movement in the periphery, a small boy, no older than 5 or 6, dressed in what looks like denim overalls. He darts out from behind the Assembly of God church, runs a short distance towards the woods, and then vanishes. He never makes a sound. No one has ever seen his face clearly, but the sightings are persistent, going back decades. Groundskeepers are the ones who see him most often. They'll be mowing the lawn or trimming hedges in the early morning, and they'll see the flicker of movement. Their first instinct is that a child from a tour group has wandered off. They call out, but there's no answer. They walk over to where they saw him, behind the church near the edge of the property. There's no one there. There are no small footprints on the soft ground. It's as if he was never there at all. This is not a terrifying apparition. The feeling associated with the sighting is not fear, but a profound sense of sadness. A deep, quiet melancholy. The boy seems lonely, lost. He's not playing. He's just there. And then he's gone. The obvious and most heartbreaking theory is that this is the ghost of Jesse Garon Presley, Elvis's twin. In life, the two brothers never met. But in death, perhaps they are forever linked to this piece of land. Elvis often spoke of his twin. He felt a connection, a void. He reportedly had conversations with Jesse in his mind throughout his life. Biographer Peter Guralnick, in his definitive work, Last Train to Memphis, notes how the loss of his twin shaped Elvis's personality, creating a sense of incompletion and a deep bond with his mother. If this Little boy's Jesse, why is he here? Some believe he is a residual image, a psychic snapshot of the child who might have been forever playing in the yard he never got to see. But his sad energy suggests something more. Psychics who have visited the property claim Jesse is an aware spirit. They say he is waiting for his brother. He doesn't understand that Elvis grew up, became a global superstar, and died. In his spectral world, he is still a child, and his twin is a child too. He's just waiting for his brother to come out and play. In 2002, a family from Ohio was taking pictures near the church. They didn't notice anything unusual at the time. But when they got home and developed the film, this was just before digital cameras became ubiquitous, they saw something startling. In the background of a photo of their daughter, partially obscured by a bush, was the fuzzy image of a small boy in overalls looking towards the camera. He hadn't been there when the photo was taken. The family sent a copy to the Birthplace management. It became part of the unofficial collection of strange occurrences. Skeptics argue it could be any number of things, like a trick of the light, a real child from a nearby house who runs through the property, the unreliability of eyewitness testimony, especially for fleeting peripheral visions, the famous psychological phenomenon of pareidolia, where the brain sees familiar patterns, like a human figure, in random shapes and shadows. All are plausible. Yet, the consistency of the description of a small boy, overalls, a sense of sadness, the same location behind the churchy, is harder to dismiss. The boy is never seen inside the house or near the more crowded areas. He sticks to the edges, the quiet places. It's as if he's shy, unwilling to be seen by the crowds who come to honor his famous brother. He remains a lonely figure on the fringe, a silent testament to the tragedy that occurred on the day a king was born. If this is the ghost of Jesse Guerin, what does he want? Is he trapped, forever replaying a childhood he was denied? If he is waiting for Elvis, will he ever understand that his brother is gone? And perhaps the most unsettling question of all, if Elvis's spirit is also tied to this place, have the two brothers finally been reunited in the afterlife? Two small boys playing forever in the Mississippi twilight. Number 13. Do the names on the story wall glow in the dark? The Elvis Presley Birthplace has a story wall. It's a series of granite markers that chronicle significant events from each year of Elvis's life, from 1935 to 1977. It's a popular spot for photos, a place for fans to trace the incredible trajectory of his life. But according to some night watchmen and late-night visitors, the wall has a strange property. Certain names on certain nights appear to emit a faint internal glow. The phenomenon is said to be subtle. It's not a bright, flashing light. It's a soft, phosphorescent luminescence, as if the letters themselves are charged with some kind of energy. And it's not random. The names that are reported to glow are always the same: Gladys, Vernon, and most frequently, Jesse Guerin. The first known account comes from a security guard named Thomas Riley, who worked the night shift in the early 1990s. He reported seeing the name Gladys on the 1958 marker, the year she died, pulsing with a soft white light. He thought it was a reflection from his flashlight, but the light persisted even when he turned his flashlight off. He checked the wiring for the ground lights. Everything was normal. He filed a report, which was largely dismissed. But then, other guards started seeing it too. The theory among believers is that the wall acts as a conduit for spiritual energy. The granite, rich in quartz and other minerals, is thought by some esoteric traditions to have properties that can store and amplify psychic energy. Intense emotional focus of millions of fans on these names, particularly Gladys, who is seen as a tragic and pivotal figure in Elvis's life, might be charging the stone itself. A group of paranormal enthusiasts in 2012 tried to document the effect. They used low-light, long-exposure photography. Their results were intriguing but not conclusive. In several photos, the areas around the names Gladys and Jesse Guerin appeared slightly brighter, with a hazy, fog-like quality not present on other parts of the stone. The effect was too subtle to be definitive proof, but it was enough to fuel the legend. The group's leader, a man named Marcus Thorne, wrote about it on his blog, Southern Gothic Investigations. He speculated that it wasn't a light in the traditional sense, but a form of spiritual energy radiation that could only be captured by sensitive cameras or seen by people with a certain psychic sensitivity. The most compelling stories, however, are about the name Jesse Guerin. It is mentioned only once on the 1935 marker that details the twins' birth. Staff have reported that on the night of January 7th, the eve of the twins' birthday, this name glows more brightly than any other. It's described as a sad blue light, a stark contrast to the warm white light sometimes seen on Gladys's name. It's as if the stone itself is mourning the life that never was. Skeptics propose a number of rational explanations. The granite used for the wall could have trace amounts of naturally phosphorescent minerals which absorb energy from sunlight during the day and release it slowly at night. Different slabs used for different parts of the wall might have slightly different mineral compositions, explaining why some sections appear to glow more than others. Another possibility is a simple optical illusion caused by the specific angle of ambient light from security lamps or the moon, interacting with the polished engraved surfaces of the names. The human eye can be easily tricked in low-light conditions, and yet, why those specific names? If it were a natural mineralogical phenomenon, one would expect the effect to be more random. Why is it always the names of the family members Elvis was closest to, the ones associated with the most profound love and loss? Why does the glow on Gladys's name seem to correspond with the anniversary of her death, a time of peak emotional energy for fans visiting the site? Why does the light on Jesse's name seem to peak on the night before his birth and death? Could the focused emotional energy of millions of people actually cause a physical object to emit light? And if so, what else are we capable of that we don't understand? Number 12. Why do birds go silent when you approach the house? It's a strange and subtle thing. The grounds of the Elvis birthplace are full of life. On a typical Mississippi day, the air is thick with the sound of birds, cardinals, blue jays, mockingbirds, sparrows. Their calls and songs are a constant natural soundtrack, but as you walk up the small hill and get closer to the two-room shack, something odd happens. The birdsong fades. By the time you are standing on the front porch, there is often an unnatural silence. It's not that the birds fly away, they can still be seen in the trees. They just stop singing. It's a phenomenon that has been noted by many sensitive visitors and is a common piece of lore among the staff. They call it the hush. The zone of silence seems to be a radius of about 50 feet around the house itself. Step outside that zone and the birds start up. Again, step back inside and the silence returns. Biologists and ornithologists would quickly dismiss this. They would explain that birds often go quiet when they perceive a potential threat, and a group of noisy humans walking towards them certainly qualifies. This is normal animal behavior, but the staff who have observed it for years say it's different here. The silence is too abrupt, too complete, and it happens even when a single quiet person approaches the house. A local birdwatching group, the Tupelo Audubon Society, informally studied the phenomenon in 2007. They spent several weekends observing the bird behavior on the property. Their official report found nothing scientifically anomalous. However, the group's president, Dr. Samuel Finch, no relation to the parapsychologist, noted in his personal log, which was later published in a local newsletter, there is an undeniable atmospheric quality to the location. While our data shows typical avian response to human presence, I cannot deny the anecdotal experience. The silence feels heavier, more profound than simple caution would dictate. One popular supernatural theory is that the house exists in a kind of spiritual bubble. The intense energy of the place, the birth, the death, the subsequent decades of adoration and grief from millions of fans has created a field that disrupts the natural world in subtle ways. Animals, which are often thought to be more sensitive to paranormal energy than humans, react to this field. The birds don't go silent out of fear, but out of a kind of reverence or confusion. They are responding to an energy they don't understand. Another, more poignant theory links the silence directly to Gladys. She was known to love the sound of birds singing. According to family friends, she would often sit on the porch in the morning just to listen to them. Perhaps the silence is a sign of her spiritual presence. In this view, when people approach her home, her spirit's energy becomes more focused, and this energy inadvertently causes the birds to fall silent. It's a ghostly sign of respect, the natural world paying homage to the mother of the king. Then there's the connection to Jesse. In some folklore traditions, an unnatural silence in nature is an omen or a sign of a lost or wandering spirit. The silence around the house could be a perpetual echo of the silence that followed Jesse's stillbirth the moment a baby's expected cry was replaced by a profound and shocking quiet. The hush could be a daily reenactment of that tragic, silent moment. The staff have their own stories. And one groundskeeper swore that on a quiet Tuesday morning he saw a mockingbird land on the porch railing, and instead of its usual complex song, it let out a single, clear, three-note whistle that sounded exactly like the opening of Love Me Tender. It sang the notes once, and then the whoosh fell. He never heard it again. Is it simply a case of people wanting to find meaning in a common natural occurrence? Or are the birds of Tupelo responding to something we can't see or hear? If an area can hold a sound or a smell, can it also hold an absence of sound? And what does it mean if the very air around that little house is so heavy with history that it can literally silence the birds in the trees? Number 11. Does the old rocking chair move on its own? Inside the tiny house, in the main room that served as a living room and bedroom, sits a simple wooden rocking chair. It's not the original Presley family chair, which is long lost to time. It's a period-appropriate piece placed there to show visitors what the home would have looked like. It's a static piece of a museum display, but sometimes it isn't static. Multiple visitors and several staff members have reported seeing the chair moving. It's not a violent poltergeist-style shaking. It's a gentle, slow, rhythmic rocking, as if someone is sitting in it, quietly passing the time. It usually happens when the room is empty, seen from the doorway by a guide or a visitor who is just entering or leaving. The rocking is always slow and steady. As soon as the chair is directly observed or approached, the movement stops. The earliest documented reports are from the mid-1980s. A guide reported that she would often find the chair in a slightly different position at the end of the day than it was in the morning, even though it was roped off and no one was supposed to touch it. She started placing a tiny, invisible mark on the floor to check its position. Day after day, she found it had moved, just an inch or two, as if from a slight rock. The primary theory is that this is the ghostly signature of Gladys Presley. A rocking chair is a powerful symbol of motherhood and home. It's easy to imagine a young Gladys, pregnant or holding her infant son, sitting in such a chair, rocking and humming a lullaby. Those who believe it is her spirit say this is one of her most common manifestations. She is still there, in her home, quietly rocking her baby boy. The feeling associated with this phenomenon is peaceful and maternal, not frightening. In 2009, a tourist from Canada, an engineer named Robert Fleet, captured something on video. He was filming the interior of the house with his camcorder. He panned across the room, and for a brief 3-second period as the chair came into frame, it can be seen making one slow, distinct forward rock. Fleet insists that no one was in the room and there was no vibration from people walking. The video was posted online and has been a source of debate among paranormal enthusiasts ever since. Skeptics claim the movement could have been caused by a draft from the door or a vibration from a passing truck on the nearby road amplified by the uneven wooden floor. Believers see it as definitive proof. Another theory links the chair not to Gladys but to Vernon. He was a man who spent long periods unemployed during the Depression. A rocking chair on a porch or by a stove would have been a place for quiet contemplation, worry, and waiting. Perhaps the rocking is a residual energy of his anxiety and his quiet, protective presence over his family. A more technical explanation involves static electricity and air currents. The constant flow of visitors through a small, enclosed space can create subtle changes in air pressure and build up static charges. These forces, combined with the chair being perfectly balanced on its rockers, could theoretically be enough to cause a slight, seemingly spontaneous movement. The science is plausible, but it doesn't quite satisfy those who have seen the slow, deliberate, and rhythmic nature of the rocking. A psychic who visited in 2014, a woman named Celine Moreno, offered a different take. She claimed the energy moving the chair was not a single spirit, but a combination. She described it as a memory loop of Gladys rocking Elvis, a scene of such pure, simple love that it imprinted itself on the house. She said that sometimes the spirit of the child Jesse sits with her, finally receiving the maternal comfort he never knew in life. So, what is causing the chair to move? Is it a simple matter of physics, air currents, and vibrations in an old house? Is it the restless, loving spirit of a mother who never left her home? Or is it a tragic echo, a ghostly tableau of a mother and her 2 sons, one living and one dead, forever together in that simple wooden chair? And if you saw it move, would you feel scared or would you feel at peace? Number 10, what is the unexplained light in the church window? The old Assembly of God Church sits peacefully on the grounds, a monument to the musical and spiritual origins of Elvis. At night, the building is dark. There are no interior lights left on. The only illumination comes from the low-powered security lamps placed around the property. But on some nights, a different light appears. A soft, warm, flickering light, visible in one of the church's side windows. It looks, for all the world, like a single candle or an oil lamp is burning inside the empty, locked building. This phenomenon has been witnessed almost exclusively by security guards and the occasional person driving past the site late at night. The reports are remarkably consistent. It's a single point of light, golden in color, that seems to waver and flicker as if it were a real flame. It appears in the same window pane every time. When a guard approaches to investigate, the light vanishes. And a thorough check of the church always reveals the same thing, nothing. There is no source for the light. No faulty wiring, no reflective surface that could be catching a distant headlight. The first official report was logged in 1988 by a guard who thought a vagrant had broken in and lit a candle. He called for police backup. They surrounded the small building, unlocked the door, and stormed in, only to find it completely empty and dark. The incident was put down as an unexplained reflection, but the guards knew what they had seen. Theories about the light are varied. The most common one is that it's a spirit light or ghost light, a common type of phenomenon in paranormal lore. Believers say it is a manifestation of the intense spiritual energy that was poured into that church during its active years. The light is a physical residue of the passionate faith of the congregation, a literal Holy Ghost light. They connect it to the fiery Pentecostal services the Presley family attended, where the light of the Spirit was a common theme. Another theory connects the light directly to a young Elvis. Perhaps it is a manifestation of his own spirit, drawn back to the place where his musical light was first switched on. In this interpretation, the single flickering flame represents his singular brilliant talent, a small spark that was ignited in that humble church and would grow to illuminate the entire world. As a psychic who visited the site claimed the light was the soul flame of a young boy, pure and not yet touched by the sorrows of fame. A more historical explanation was proposed by a local historian, Charles Beaumont. He researched the history of the church and found that during the 1930s and 40s, it was common for rural churches with unreliable electricity to use kerosene lamps as backup lighting, especially for evening services or meetings. A single lamp would often be left burning on a table near the pulpit. Beaumont suggested that what people are seeing is a residual image of this lamp, a memory of the church from Elvis's childhood replaying itself. Skeptics have tried to debunk the sightings. They've suggested everything from ball lightning, a rare atmospheric phenomenon, to reflections from airplanes passing overhead. In 2013, a local amateur astronomy club set up cameras to try and triangulate the light source, hoping to prove it was a reflection from a specific streetlight or building several miles away. They were unable to find any correlation. The light appeared on their cameras on 2 separate nights, but its position and behavior did not match any known distant light sources. It seemed to originate from within the church itself. So, what is this mysterious light? Is it the spiritual energy of a long-gone congregation still burning bright after all these years? Is it a symbolic manifestation of a young boy's nascent genius? Or is it simply a trick of the light, a persistent illusion that has fooled dozens of eyewitnesses? And if it is a candle in the window, who is it for? Number 9, why do cameras and phones fail in one specific spot? It happens every day. A tourist is standing on the small patch of grass just to the left of the front porch of the Birthplace home. It's a perfect spot for a photo, with the whole house in the frame. They lift their phone or camera, compose the shot, and press the button. Nothing happens. The phone screen freezes. The digital camera's battery, which was full a moment ago, suddenly shows as empty. They step a few feet to the right or left, and the device starts working perfectly again. They step back into the dead zone, and it fails again. This is the glitch spot. It's a small, well-defined area, no more than 10 feet in diameter. The phenomenon is so common that tour guides will often warn people about it. If your phone acts up, just take a few steps to the side, they'll say with a knowing smile. It affects all sorts of electronic devices, digital cameras, smartphones, even older video recorders. The effect is always temporary. As soon as the device is removed from the area, it returns to normal. Engineers and tech experts have offered a range of plausible explanations. The most common is some form of localized electromagnetic interference EMI. There could be a buried power line under that specific spot, or perhaps some old, forgotten piece of metal in the ground is acting as an antenna for stray radio frequencies. In 2016, a team from a local electronics repair shop brought a handheld EMF electromagnetic field meter to the site. They did, in fact, find a slightly elevated EMF reading in that one area. It was not a dangerously high level, but it was a measurable spike compared to the surrounding ground. They concluded that this was likely the cause of the electronic malfunctions. But the story doesn't end there. The question is, what is causing the EMF spike? A thorough search of municipal records showed no power lines or utilities running under that part of the property. A ground-penetrating radar survey was conducted in 2018 as part of a landscaping project. It found nothing unusual in the soil, no large metal objects, no buried cables. The source of the electromagnetic field remains a mystery. This is where the paranormal theories come in. In paranormal research, sudden battery drains and electronic malfunctions are considered classic signs of a spiritual presence trying to manifest. The theory is that a spirit needs to draw energy from its environment to make itself seen, heard, or felt. The easiest sources of energy are often electrical, like the batteries in a camera or phone. The glitch spot could be an area where a spirit is particularly active, constantly drawing energy from any electronic device that enters its space. Who would this spirit be? Some point to Vernon Presley. He was the one who built the house. He was a quiet, protective, and sometimes stern figure. Some psychics have claimed to feel a strong male presence in that exact spot, a gatekeeper energy that is wary of modern technology. Perhaps Vernon's spirit is trying to protect the house from the endless intrusion of cameras and phones, creating a small zone where his home can remain unphotographed, preserved as it was. Another theory connects it to the raw energy of the site itself. This isn't about a specific ghost, but about the accumulated psychic energy of the place. The glitch spot could be a vortex or a focal point where this energy is concentrated. The birth of Elvis, the death of Jesse, the emotions of millions of pilgrims, all of this psychic data might be swirling in that spot, creating an energy field that interferes with sensitive electronics. The stories from visitors add another layer. People have reported not just camera failure, but also feeling dizzy or disoriented while standing in the spot. Some have felt a static electricity charge on their skin, their hair standing on end. These are all sensations associated with strong electromagnetic fields, but also with paranormal hotspots. So what is the truth behind the glitch spot? Is there a rational, scientific explanation we just haven't found yet, like a rare geological magnetic anomaly? Or is it a place where the veil between worlds is thin, a spot where a spiritual entity makes its presence known by draining the life from our modern gadgets? And if a ghost is trying to manifest there, what is it trying to show us? Number 8, what causes the sudden extreme cold spots on the porch? The Mississippi heat can be brutal. In July and August, the air is thick, humid, and heavy. The small wooden porch of the Presley birthplace offers little relief from the sun. You'd expect it to be one of the hottest places on the property, and usually it is. But sometimes for just a moment, it becomes the coldest. They are known as the porch cold spots. They are different from a cool breeze. A breeze moves. These are stationary pockets of intense, unnatural cold. A person can be standing on the porch, sweating in the 95-degree heat, and suddenly feel as if they've stepped into a walk-in freezer. The temperature drop is described as instantaneous and dramatic, a change of 20 or 30 degrees. The air gets heavy and still. Sometimes people can see their own breath fog up. The spot is usually small, just a few feet across. If you step out of it, you are back in the oppressive heat. Step back in, and the freezing cold returns. After a few seconds, or sometimes a minute, it vanishes as quickly as it appeared. These cold spots have been reported for years by everyone from tourists to hardened skeptics. In paranormal circles, a sudden localized drop in temperature is a hallmark of a classic haunting. The prevailing theory is that when a spirit attempts to manifest, it requires energy. It draws this energy from its immediate surroundings. Heat is a form of kinetic energy. By pulling the heat out of the air, the spirit can gather the energy it needs to make its presence felt. The cold spot is the literal footprint of the ghost. The porch is a liminal space, a threshold between the outside world and the private interior world of the home. In many spiritual traditions, such places are considered to be areas of high paranormal activity. The porch was a central part of the Presleys' life. It was where they would sit on cool evenings, where Vernon would rest after a long day of work, where Gladys would shell peas. It was the place they greeted the few visitors they had. It was their connection to the community. Many believe the cold spots are linked to Vernon Presley. Unlike the warm, maternal feeling often associated with Gladys's supposed manifestations like the smell of cooking, the cold spots feel different. They are not menacing, but they feel more serious, more somber. Vernon was a man who carried the heavy weight of providing for his family during the Great Depression. He was arrested and served time in prison when Elvis was a toddler, an event that deeply shamed him. The porch might have been a place of great worry for him. The cold spots could be a manifestation of his anxieties, a residual echo of his quiet, troubled spirit. In 2011, a paranormal investigation team, Ghost Trackers of the Mid-South, conducted an experiment. They set up several thermal cameras on the porch. For hours, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, on one of the camera's screens, a dark, human-shaped patch appeared on the floor and wall of the porch. The color indicated a temperature in the low 40s Fahrenheit, while the surrounding air was in the high 80s. The spot lingered for 45 seconds. No one was standing there at the time. The thermal image is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the cold spot phenomenon. Skeptics point to more natural causes. The old house has gaps in the floorboards and walls. A sudden gust of wind from a specific direction could pull cooler air up from the crawl space beneath the house, creating a temporary cool spot. Evaporative cooling could also play a role. If there's a small, unnoticed patch of moisture on the porch from a spilled drink or recent rain, a dry breeze could cause a rapid drop in temperature in that one spot. These explanations are possible, but they don't fully account for the intensity of the cold or the fact that people can sometimes see their breath. Why do these cold spots appear almost exclusively on the porch, the threshold of the home? If they are caused by a spirit drawing energy, who is it and what are they trying to do? Could it be Vernon, forever standing guard at the door of the house he built? Or is it something else, a doorway not just to a house but to another world? Number 7 is there a face in the floorboards of the birth room? Look down. In the small room where Elvis and Jessie were born, the floor is made of simple, wide pine planks. They are worn smooth by time and the footsteps of millions of visitors. Over the years, a strange pattern in the wood grain of one of the boards has become a subject of fascination and debate. Some people see nothing but a random collection of knots and lines, but many others see a face. It's not a perfectly rendered portrait. It's an example of pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive familiar patterns, especially faces, in random stimuli. But the face in the Tupelo floorboards is unusually compelling. It appears to be the face of a baby, seen in profile. The eye is a small, dark knot in the wood. The curve of the forehead, the tiny nose, and the slightly open mouth are formed by the natural lines of the grain. The image is subtle. You have to be standing in just the right spot, with the light hitting the floor at the right angle, to see it clearly. The floorboard baby, as it has been nicknamed, was first pointed out by a visitor in the early 2000s. The story spread online, and soon, looking for the face became a part of the visitor experience for those in the know. Tour guides are generally discouraged from pointing it out as to not create a bottleneck in the small room, but they will often confirm its location if asked. The immediate and obvious interpretation is that this is a miraculous image of one of the Presley twins. But which one? Given the tragic circumstances of the birth, most people believe it represents Jessie Guerin. They see the face as a natural memorial, a permanent accidental tribute to the lost child, etched into the very fabric of the room where he was born. The expression on the face is seen as peaceful, as if the baby is sleeping. It provides a sense of comfort to many fans, a feeling that Jessie's spirit is at peace and forever a part of his home. Others see the face as belonging to Elvis. They see it as a sign, a holy image akin to the Virgin Mary appearing on a piece of toast. For them, it is a mark of destiny, a sign that the baby born in this room was special from the very beginning. They point out that the face seems to be looking up towards the heavens, as if aware of the great future ahead of it. A more esoteric theory was put forward in a book called Sacred Spaces and Psychic Imprints by author and paranormalist Evelyn Reed. She argued that the image was not there when the house was built. She proposed that it was a thought form, a psychic projection that has been slowly etched into the wood by the intense, focused emotional energy of millions of visitors. For decades, people have stood in that room thinking about the birth of the twins, projecting powerful thoughts of love, sadness, and awe. Reed believed this collective psychic energy physically altered the wood grain over time, creating an image that reflected the focus of their thoughts, a baby's face. Of course, the scientific explanation is simple. It's just a coincidence. Wood grain is random. There are billions of board feet of lumber in the world, and statistically, some of it is bound to have patterns that look like things we recognize. It's a textbook case of pareidolia, no different from seeing animals in the clouds. There is nothing supernatural about it, and yet the placement is what makes it so powerful. Of all the floorboards and all the houses in the world, for this one, with this particular image, to be in this specific room feels like a coincidence too great to ignore for many. It's a focal point for the emotions that the room evokes. Is it a one in a billion fluke of nature? Is it a sign from above, a mark of a sacred event? Or is it a testament to the power of human consciousness, an image created by the collective will of millions of devoted fans? And if our thoughts can create a face in a piece of wood, what other effects are our collective emotions having on the world around us? Number 6, who whispers Aaron when no one is there? It is one of the rarest and most chilling phenomena reported at the birthplace. It almost always happens to people who are alone or in a very small, quiet group. They will be standing inside the small house, often in the main living area, when they hear it. A soft, breathy whisper right beside their ear. It is always the same word. Aaron, Elvis's middle name. The name his parents gave him. The name that linked him to his stillborn twin, Jesse Guerin. The whisper is described as sounding like a woman's voice. It is gentle, not menacing. But it is profoundly startling because of its intimacy. It's not a distant sound. It feels like someone is standing right next to you, breathing the word into your ear. People who experience it often spin around, expecting to see someone there, only to find they are completely alone in the room. The reports are infrequent, maybe only a handful a year, but they are remarkably consistent. The first widely known account came from a journalist, Linda Thompson, who was writing a travel piece on Mississippi landmarks in 1996. In her article, she described her visit to the birthplace. She wrote, "As I stood alone for a moment in the Presleys' small living room, I heard a woman's voice, as clear as day, whisper the name Aaron in my right ear. I can offer no explanation for it. It was as real as the wooden walls around me." Her account opened the door for others to share similar private experiences. The most common theory is that this is the voice of Gladys Presley. It is her spirit forever calling for her son. The name Aaron is significant. To his fans and the world, he was Elvis. But to his mother, he was her boy, her Aaron. The whisper is seen as an expression of her eternal motherly love. Those who have heard it say, it sounds loving, almost like a gentle reminder. Why would she be whispering his name to a stranger? Psychics suggest that she is not. We believe her spirit is caught in a memory loop, replaying a common, everyday moment from her life. She is simply calling out to her son, who she believes is just in the next room or playing outside. The visitor just happens to be in the right place at the right time to overhear this ghostly echo from the past. Another more complex theory connects the whisper not just to Gladys, but to the dynamic of the twins. The name Aaron was Elvis's, but in some traditions, twins are seen as two halves of a single soul. The middle name Aaron, with its biblical origins, is phonetically similar to Guerin. Perhaps the whisper is not just for Elvis. Perhaps it is a mother's call to the whole soul of her children, a call to both Aaron and Guerin. Skeptics have a harder time explaining this phenomenon. Auditory hallucinations can be caused by a variety of factors, including infrasound or simply the power of suggestion in a place so charged with emotion. The brain can play tricks, interpreting a gust of wind or the creak of a floorboard as a familiar sound, like a word. The whisper could be a form of auditory pareidolia. However, this doesn't fully account for the clarity and specificity of the word Aaron that so many different people report. A particularly strange story comes from a sound technician who was on site in 2014 to do some work for a documentary. He had left a sensitive microphone recording in the house overnight to capture ambient sound. He said that when he reviewed the tape the next day, amidst the hours of silence and the occasional groan of the old house, he heard one distinct, clear whisper, or a woman's voice that said, "Aaron." He claimed the documentary producers decided not to use the footage as it was too sensational. The recording, if it exists, has never been made public. Whose voice is it that whispers in the silence of that house? Is it a mother forever calling for her son? Is it a psychic echo of a name that would one day be known around the world? And if Gladys is still calling for Aaron, does she know that he's no longer there to answer? Number 5. Why does the old water well sometimes hum? Behind the house, there is an old well. It's a simple, stone-lined well, covered for safety now, that would have been the Presley family's only source of water. It represents the hardship and simplicity of their early life. Most visitors walk past it with only a cursory glance. But some people are drawn to it, and a few of those people have reported hearing a strange sound coming from its depths. A low, steady, resonant hum. It's described as a deep vibrational sound, almost like a large electrical transformer or a giant tuning fork that has been struck. You feel it in your chest as much as you hear it with your ears. It is not a mechanical sound. It seems to be coming from the earth itself, amplified by the well shaft. The sound is intermittent. It might last for a few minutes and then fade away, not to be heard again for days or weeks. Theories about the humming well are some of the most unusual connected to the site. Geologists have suggested it could be a natural phenomenon. The well shaft could be interacting with a subterranean water source, and the movement of the water through certain rock formations could create a resonant frequency, a singing aquifer. This is a known, though rare, geological phenomenon. Alternatively, seismic activity, even microtremors far too small to be felt by humans, could cause the ground to vibrate at a low, audible frequency. But the local lore has a different explanation. The well is seen as a connection to the earth, a gateway to the deep, primal energies of the land. In this view, the hum is the voice of the land itself. The land in this part of Mississippi is steeped in a rich history of music, the blues, gospel, country. The theory is that the land absorbed this musical energy, and the well acts as a kind of natural speaker, broadcasting the deep, foundational note of the region's musical soul. This is the very note, the theory goes, that a young Elvis Presley was uniquely attuned to, the raw material from which he would forge rock and roll. The more paranormal-focused theory suggests the well is a point of psychic energy convergence. A well penetrates the earth, and in many folk traditions, they are seen as portals or connections to the underworld or the spirit realm. The hum could be the sound of this spiritual energy, a sign that the well is a place of power. Psychics who have visited the site often report feeling a strong vortex of energy around the well. One particularly vivid account comes from a musician, a bass player from England, who visited in 2010. He wrote on a fan forum that he was drawn to the well and stood beside it for several minutes. He heard the hum and said he was able to identify its pitch. It was a low resonant E flat. He claimed he felt an overwhelming creative urge and wrote the bass line for a new song in his head while standing there. He described the hum as the fundamental note of the universe. Skeptics maintain that it is likely the sound of hidden machinery. There could be a water pump or a piece of equipment for the museum's facilities located nearby, perhaps underground, and the well shaft is simply amplifying the sound. The museum staff have repeatedly denied this, stating there is no machinery near the well that could produce such a sound. So what is the source of the mysterious hum? Is it a rare geological quirk, the earth itself singing a low, steady note? Is it the mystical sound of a land, saturated with musical history? Or is it simply the echo of a hidden water pump, a mundane sound misinterpreted as something more? And if the land itself has a voice, what is it trying to say? Number 4, do phantom footsteps still walk the floors at night? When the last tourist has gone home, and the lights are out, the little house on the hill settles into the night. But according to security guards and staff who have been there after dark, it is never truly still. One of the most common and unnerving experiences is the sound of footsteps on the wooden floors of the empty, locked house. The sound is distinct. It's not the random creaking and groaning of an old wooden structure. It's the clear, rhythmic sound of someone walking, a heavy, measured tread. Sometimes it seems to pace back and forth in the main room. Other times it sounds like someone is walking from the bedroom into the kitchen area. The guards standing outside hear it clearly through the thin walls. When they unlock the door and shine their lights inside, there is never anyone there. This phenomenon is one of the oldest associated with the site, with reports going back to the 1970s, even before the area was fully developed as a tourist attraction. A night watchman in 1978. A man named Floyd Miller was one of the first to report it officially. He was a no-nonsense military veteran and not prone to flights of fancy. He reported hearing a man walking around in there on multiple occasions. He was so convinced someone was breaking in that he had the locks changed twice. The sounds continued. The primary suspect for these phantom footsteps is Vernon Presley. The tread is described as heavy, like a work boot, and the pacing is often described as restless or worried. It aligns with the image of Vernon, a man burdened by poverty and responsibility, pacing the floors of the home he built, worrying about how to feed his family. Many feel it is his spirit, forever imprinted on the house, reenacting the long, anxious nights of the Great Depression. A paranormal investigation in 2004 focused on this phenomenon. The team from Memphis set up a series of highly sensitive audio recorders and motion detectors inside the house. The motion detectors were never triggered, but the audio recorders picked up several loud, distinct thuds that sounded, on analysis, like a footfall on a wooden floor. The sounds occurred when no one was inside the house, and there was no external sound, like a passing car, to explain them. The lead investigator, David Gallo, stated in his report, "We have captured audible evidence of percussive events inside the house consistent with footsteps, for which we have no conventional explanation." A less common but more intriguing theory is that the footsteps do not belong to one person, but two. Some accounts, particularly from the early years, described the heavy footsteps being followed or accompanied by the much lighter, faster patter of a small child's bare feet. This has led to the speculation that it is the spirit of Vernon, forever being followed by the ghost of a young Elvis, a ghostly memory of a father and son in their first home. Of course, skeptics point to the natural sounds of an old house. Wood expands and contracts with changes in temperature and humidity, causing loud popping and creaking sounds that can easily be mistaken for footsteps. Animals like squirrels or raccoons could also get into the crawl space or attic, and their movements could sound like they are inside the main house. These are valid points, however, they don't fully explain the rhythmic pacing quality of the sounds that are so often reported. Why would a spirit be compelled to pace the floors of a house for over 80 years? If it is Vernon, is he still worried? Is he protecting his home from the endless stream of visitors? Or is it a simple residual memory, a sound trapped in a loop, with no consciousness behind it at all? And if you were a guard, standing alone in the dark, would you be brave enough to open the door and look inside? Number 3, why do fresh flowers wilt on Jesse Garon's memorial stone? On the grounds of the birthplace, there is a small, simple memorial stone dedicated to Jesse Garon Presley, the brother Elvis never knew. It is a place of quiet contemplation for many fans. They often leave flowers, small toys, or other tokens on the marker. And this is where a strange and sad phenomenon is said to occur. Freshly cut flowers left on Jesse's stone seem to wilt and die at an unnaturally fast rate. A bouquet of roses that should last for several days will be brown and drooping by the next morning. A single fresh daisy will be withered in a matter of hours. The phenomenon is so well known to the groundskeepers that they have to clear the memorial stone almost daily. They've noted that flowers left on other parts of the property, even just a few feet away, last for a normal amount of time. It seems to be in effect localized entirely to Jesse's marker. This is not a new story. It has been part of the site's lore for decades. In her 1999 book, Supernatural South, folklorist Dr. Eleanor Vance documented the legend. She interviewed a groundskeeper who had worked at the site since the 1980s. He told her, "It's the saddest thing. It's like the spot just sucks the life right out of them. We put fresh flowers out for the twins' birthday one year. By noon, the ones for Jesse were already dead. The ones for Elvis were fine." The supernatural explanation is heartbreaking. It posits that the area around the marker holds an immense concentration of negative or sad energy. This is not an evil energy, but a profound spiritual melancholy associated with a life that was never lived. This intense grief, the theory goes, creates a psychic cold spot that is inhospitable to living things. The energy of loss is so powerful that it literally drains the life force from the flowers. It is the spiritual echo of a death, still potent enough to affect the physical world. Some psychics have offered a more active explanation. They claim it is the spirit of Jesse himself who is responsible, but not out of malice. They say his spirit is so desperate for the life he never had that he unconsciously draws the life energy from the flowers to himself. It is a sad, desperate act of a ghost trying to feel alive, even for a moment. Of course, there are many potential scientific explanations. The stone marker could be made of a material that absorbs and retains a great deal of heat from the sun, essentially cooking the flowers that are placed on it. or chemicals used to clean the stone or treat the surrounding grass could be leaching into the flowers, poisoning them. The groundskeeping staff has tried to test these theories. They've measured the temperature of the stone, and it doesn't seem to get significantly hotter than other similar objects. They also claim to use only water to clean the marker to avoid this very problem. In 2015, a botany student from Mississippi State University made the phenomenon the subject of a small, informal project. She placed two identical bouquets of fresh-cut carnations in identical vases with the same amount of water. She placed one on Jesse's marker and one on a nearby patch of grass as a control. She photographed them every hour. According to her unpublished report, which she posted on a university blog, the flowers on the memorial showed visible signs of wilting within 4 hours. The control group flowers remained fresh for over 2 days. She could offer no scientific conclusion, but called the results animalist and intriguing. What is causing this accelerated decay? Is it a simple, undiscovered environmental factor related to the stone or the soil? Or is it a manifestation of one of the most profound human emotions, grief, for a lost child so powerful that it has become a tangible, destructive force? If a place can hold on to sadness, can that sadness actively harm the living things around it? And what does this say about the spirit of the boy buried there? Number 2, can you hear a lullaby on the wind? This phenomenon is perhaps the most ethereal and personal of all those reported at the Tupelo site. It does not happen in a specific place. It happens on the wind. On quiet, still days, when there are few visitors around, some people have reported hearing the faint strains of a woman humming a lullaby. It is not like the phantom gospel music heard in the church. This sound is much softer, more intimate. It's a simple, soothing melody. No one can ever quite make out the tune, but everyone who hears it agrees on what it is, a lullaby. The sound seems to have no source. It drifts on the air, sometimes seeming to come from the direction of the house, other times from the trees at the edge of the property. It is there for a moment, a faint, ghostly melody, and then it is gone. The experience is deeply personal. People who hear it often feel an overwhelming sense of peace and sadness at the same time. Many are moved to tears without knowing why. It is most often reported by women, particularly mothers. The immediate theory is that this is the spirit of Gladys Presley, humming to her babies. A lullaby is the most primal sound of maternal love. The melody floating on the wind is thought to be a residual echo of Gladys humming to the infant Elvis, or perhaps humming to the twins she was carrying before they were born. It is the sound of her love untethered from a specific location, now part of the very atmosphere of the place. A journalist named Sarah Jennings wrote a deeply personal essay about her experience in 2006. She was visiting the site on a gray, overcast day. She was feeling melancholy, thinking about her own young son at home. As she stood near the memorial for Jesse, she heard it. "It was the saddest, most beautiful sound I have ever heard," she wrote. A woman humming. I knew, with a certainty I cannot explain, that it was a mother singing to a child she had lost. In that moment, I wasn't a journalist. I was just a mother, standing with another mother across the veil of time. A more tragic interpretation is that the lullaby is not for the living Elvis, but for the lost Jesse. It is a mother's eternal song for the child she never got to hold, a lullaby that will never be answered. This would explain the profound sense of sadness that accompanies the sound. It is the sound of a love that had nowhere to go. Skeptics, of course, suggest that the sound is simply the wind itself. The wind blowing through the leaves of the pine trees or over the eaves of the old house can create a variety of sighing, humming, and whistling sounds. The human brain, ever searching for patterns, can easily interpret these random, natural sounds as a melody, especially in a place that is so emotionally suggestive. It is, they would argue, a classic case of auditory pareidolia, a ghost created by the listener's own mind and emotions. But this doesn't fully explain why different people, at different times, describe the sound in such a similar way, a woman's voice, a simple melody, a lullaby. It also doesn't explain the intense and specific emotional reaction it provokes. Is it possible for a sound, an expression of love and grief, to become a permanent part of the environment? Can the wind itself carry a memory? If it is Gladys, is she singing to one son or to two? And if you heard that sad, beautiful lullaby on the wind, would it bring you comfort or would it break your heart? Number 1 is a protective presence guarding the birthplace. This final phenomenon is not a single event, it is a feeling, a pervasive sense of being watched, but not in a malevolent way. Staff, security guards, and many repeat visitors describe a palpable presence on the property. At an awareness, they call it the guardian. It is a feeling that the site is protected, looked after by an unseen force. This is the most overarching and perhaps the most significant of all the unexplained phenomena. It ties all the others together. The footsteps, the smells, the whispers, they are not random hauntings, but different facets of a single, complex, and intelligent presence that considers this small plot of land its home. And security guards on the night shift have often reported the feeling. They say that while it can be eerie, it is not frightening. It feels like a coworker is on patrol with them. They will hear a sound in the distance, a twig snapping in the woods, and feel a sudden sense that it's nothing to worry about. Or they will be about to miss something on their rounds, and a sudden urge will compel them to double-check an area where they might find a gate unlocked or a security light burned out. One of the most dramatic stories comes from a former site director who shared it after his retirement. In the winter of 2003, a fire broke out in a nearby maintenance shed due to faulty wiring. It was late at night and no one was around. The director was at home, asleep, when he woke up suddenly, filled with a sense of absolute panic and the overwhelming thought, something is wrong at the house. He couldn't explain it, but he got in his car and drove to the site. He arrived just as the first flames were beginning to lick the side of the shed, which was dangerously close to the historic church. He was able to call the fire department in time, and they saved the buildings. He credits his sudden awakening not to chance, but to the guardian of the property alerting him. Who is this protective presence? The theories are many. Some believe it is Vernon, the man who built the house, still watching over his creation and the legacy of his son. His quiet, steady energy would fit the description of a silent protector. Others believe it is Gladys, the eternal mother, guarding not just the physical house, but the memory of her family and her son's humble beginnings. But the most popular and compelling theory is that it is Elvis himself, not the ghost of the sequin superstar, but the spirit of the man himself in his totality. In this view, his soul is forever tied to the place he began. His love for his parents, his grief for his lost twin, and his connection to his roots all anchor him here. The guardian is his spirit, ensuring that his first home is preserved and respected. The minor paranormal events are just small signs of his presence, small leaks of his immense spiritual energy. He is not haunting the place in a scary way. He is inhabiting it. This theory gains power when you consider Elvis's well-documented spirituality. He was a lifelong spiritual seeker, interested in religion, numerology, and the afterlife. It is not a stretch for believers to think that his powerful spirit would endure after death, and that it would choose to reside in the place of his birth, the place of his purest and most uncompromised self. Is this guardian presence simply the product of the staff's deep emotional investment in the site? Is it a psychological comfort, a way of personifying the history and importance of the place they care for? Or is there truly an unseen intelligence at work in Tupelo, an intelligence that moves chairs, whispers names, and on at least one occasion may have saved the entire site from destruction? And if it is Elvis, standing eternal guard over his own memory, what does he think of the millions who come to see him? Is he a lonely king or a humble boy, finally home?